Okay, so I've got my TI83Plus, and it's a base model, so it's as cheap as they get. It's also an older TI83Plus, so let's keep that in mind. What we're going to try to do is do some simple linear regression with it. So I've got an example about Shetland ponies, and the X variable that we're going to use is the age, and the Y variable is the weight. Okay, so let's just try to get some basic statistics with that. Now what we need to do, of course, is enter the data into our calculator, so I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so we can better see some things. And what we need to do is enter the X variables into list 1. So I'm going to highlight list 1 and I'm going to clear it and then press enter so that it clears out the data, and then I'm going to enter the X variables into the list 1 or whatever list you find appropriate. Make sure it's in a consecutive order like list 1, and then we'll do list 2 or list 2 and then list 3. It doesn't really matter, but because you tell it what list you're using, but it just kind of, I don't know, makes sense to me to have it be in order. But you know, you might be different. So I'm entering the Y variable into list 2, and then we will do some statistics with it. Okay, so once you get all your data entered, you want to then go back into your stat menu by pressing the stat button. You're going to go to calc if you want basic linear regression, such as the equation of the line and things like that. Now it depends on what book you're using. Some books use linreg ax plus b, where b is the y-intercept, but all of the books that I use and everything use a plus bx. They'll spit out the same equation, it's just kind of what format you're used to seeing it in. I'm used to b being the sample slope and beta, of course, being the population slope. So I'm going to use this guy, and you press enter to select him, and now he's prompting you for list numbers. So you need to say, I have my data in list 1, and then separate it with a comma as well as list 2, or whatever list names you used. And then you press enter, and it gives us the equation of the line. Okay? So that is what we're going to use if you want to find your prediction model or your equation of the line. You will also find these numbers in many locations in the graphing calculator, so keep that in mind. I just wanted to show you the linreg in the calc menu and what you can get from it. So we can get our model, and we can predict, we can now predict the weight of a pony given this model. So I'm just going to write it down, not that it's really that necessary, but just in case. Okay, so that was in the calc menu, and that's really interesting and all that good stuff, but is there anything, by the way, this is natural log regression or logarithmic regression, so don't confuse it with linreg versus lnreg, and this is of course exponential regression, which most of you don't want to deal with. Let's see, on this one I believe we can go to test, and to find the most information in this 83 we can go down to a linreg t-test, and that'll tell us basically pretty much everything we want to know. So if I go to enter, it says, what are your list names? Well, I have my X in list 1 and I have my Y in list 2. Frequency is usually always 1 unless you've got some grouped or stacked data. This would be for your hypothesis test, so it can do a hypothesis test for either the correlation coefficient rho or the population slope beta. And so, you know, you would pick your tail. Let's assume we're doing a left tail test, and then you just hit calculate, and it gives you everything that you really need to know. it gives you the equation line it's using, and of course it's using an a plus bx because that is the standard model, with b being the slope. It was testing for a population slope less than 0, indicating a negative correlation. It was testing for a population correlation coefficient less than 0, indicating a negative correlation, and we set that up, we selected that. Here is your test statistic for your hypothesis test. Here is your p-value for your hypothesis test for either test that you're doing. And as you can see, it's extremely high, so we would wind up rejecting. There's your A value again. There's your B value again. S is your standard error of estimate, which is really cool and something to note. S equals SE in the calculator, and that guy is equal to 14.0701. He's really annoying to calculate by hand, so it's really great that this calculator gives it to you. There is r squared, that is the coefficient of determination. Here is r, the correlation coefficient, so you can determine your strength, and then what percent of the variation is explained with your r squared value. And that's all it gives you, but that's a lot in one simple t-test. Now other calculators, this little 83 doesn't have it, but a lot of the newer, especially the 84+s, will have a linreg int or linreg interval, and that usually stands for a beta interval or an interval about the slope. Some of them will have prediction intervals as well, but unfortunately this model that I have does not have a linreg interval, but that's okay. It still gave us a lot of great information with very little work on our part. So if you have any questions on how to use an 83 plus, feel free to ask me. I'll be happy to answer them.